Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. We're going to write a method completely from scratch today. I decided it would be helpful to start with an affinity method, so we'll be using protein A. Protein A is for purifying antibodies, and we're going to do this from scratch, so we won't be using any of the preset methods that are available to us in the method editor. So this is how I imagine the setup for the Avant would be. We'll be using a tricorn column. This is the same column we packed in a different video. It's a 10 by 100 column. There'll be 4 different cell culture samples, cell harvest samples. We're going to purify each about 500 mils. They're all a little different, so we're going to want to keep them separate. We'll have 3 different buffers that we're going to be using. The sample buffer for the buffer line is going to be the same as the A1, so we'll have like 2 tubes going into the same solution. Here's the flow rate. We'll wash for 4 CVs. We're going to elute with 100% B. We'll use peak fractionation, and we're going to want to clean the column for 30 minutes after every 5th run, or on the last run. So get comfortable, get some popcorn. This is probably going to take a few minutes. I hope you enjoy this. To start, we're just going to create a new method, and we're going to use an empty method. So we're going to choose a different system because right now it says Pilot 3. I'm just going to use an Avant 25. So this is an Avant 25 right here. We're going to hit OK. And this method will work on an Avant 25 or an Avant 150. I don't really like the gradient bar below, so I'm just going to get rid of that. All right, so to start, I'm going to close the method settings phase, and then I'm just going to add a bunch of user-defined phases. And then I'm going to label them. So it's going to be column equilibration. All right, then, and if I misspell something, I just, we're going to have to keep going because I don't want to take forever to make sure the spelling is right. I'm going to do load cell harvest. This is from cell culture media. Then we're going to wash the column. We're going to use the Elution. Finally, we're going to do column cleaning. Okay, so I just like to have the major parts of my method all set up before I kind of start digging into things. So, all right, the first thing we're going to do is use the column that in the last video I made, and it's a MabSelect tricorn column right here. Change that. And so when we hit change here, this is the default of all of the settings to start with, and then here's the new value, right? We're just gonna set it to OK. So when we open up the method settings, our flow rate is already going to be preset to what we want. And same thing with delta pressures. And that's why actually having a column set up is going to be really helpful. So there are a few other things I want to change in here. So here, I want to make sure the other 2 wavelengths are off. Noise reduction, and that's the normal setting. Okay, so I am going to, after all this is set, I am going to add a pump wash instruction, and I'm just going to leave these here as off, but I'm going to set A and B as variables. So A, okay. Okay, and then I'm going to do sample inlet as a wash. Okay, so I'm going to leave the A and B off, but the sample inlet, I'm going to leave that as buffer. So each time I start a new method, it will wash the buffer line for me. And ideally what's going to happen, right, is the first time all my lines are going to be primed, and then I'm going to load my sample using the sample pump, and 500 mils later, the sample pump is going to detect air, and then that'll trip it, and then the method is going to continue. But now my sample pump is full of air. So with this instruction right here, I can now clean out the air out of the sample pump. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going for the system flow, I'm actually going to add a block. And so this way, I only have to express the system flow once. Method flow rate, right, insert. And now I am going to take the system's flow rate, I'm going to open up this, insert this into here. Oops, need to cut it. Paste. All right. So now what I can do is I can move this block around. And then I think I have to have the pump wash ahead of the flow rate. So I'm going to move this down. There we go, pump wash and then method flow rate. So then now for column equilibration, I think, so the column position is issued here and it's just down flow and nothing's turned on. I'm going to get rid of this variable, clear, actually cancel. I'm going to move the column position, cut, and I'm going to put it in the column equilibration phase. Paste. But now what I want is I don't want just to run the column immediately, and the column is going to be on position 1, so I'm going to change that too. All right, so now what I don't want to have happen is I don't want the system to turn on and immediately start washing over my column. If there's any air in the system, I want to wash all of that out. So I want to be able to set it up so that a few mils go through the system before I actually have to open the column. So I want, let's just say I want 10 mils in there. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to put in a block, and we're going to call this delay A, insert. Okay, and then so we open this up, and then we're going to do this as volume change. So right now I'm going to do 10 mils. So now I'm going to equilibrate my system like in a state of kinetic equilibration, and it will be 10 mils. There we go. All right, so now I am just going to close this delay A because it's just going to sort of get in our way. And let's see if there are any variables we want to get rid of. Pump wash. Okay, I want to enable both the inlet A and inlet B alarms. That's a good idea. pH valve. I want the flow restrictor inline, and I also want the pH monitor inline too. That way, because this is a pH based method, that's what we're eluding with. That way I'll record that information. I'm going to get rid of these variables. They just kind of, the UV2 and UV3 just sort of get in the way. It's like a lot of stuff to read. The less you're reading generally when you're going through a variable list, the better, in my opinion. So too many variables can kind of get in the way. All right, so the delta column pressure, I'm going to clear this. Okay, change, and I'm going to keep the pre-pressure there, right? Okay, so I don't need to change anything here because I'm not moving anything. All right, so for column equilibration, now we've equilibrated the system first with this delay A, and now we're equilibrating the column, and we want to equilibrate the column for 1 CV. And the reason I'm doing a 1 CV column equilibration is because I should have a nice clean column when I get to this point, but I can never tell. So, you know, it doesn't hurt to wash it out. This is a 7 centimeter, this column is 7.8 mils, I think. and we're running at 3.6 mils a minute. So like it's like 2 mils or so, it's like 2.5 minutes to run a single CV. So in the grand scheme of things, you know, one CV isn't going to take us that long for the sort of insurance that it gives us, right? All right, and I'm also going to change this to a variable. I could see where if we're running this method a lot, so we are planning on running, you know, 5 or 6 500 mil samples all at once, it would end up, you know, every CV could count. So, you know, this will just give us the option to change that if we want. Okay, so now we're actually going to load the cell harvest, right? So I'm going to keep these phases open for right now. All right, so I'm going to open this empty phase here for load cell harvest. So the first thing I'm going to do is the system pump and the sample pump can't run at the same time, at least using the injection valve position we're going to use. So let me turn off the system flow. So flow path, pumps and system flow, insert, I want it just like that. Then after that, I'm going to change the injection valve to direct inject. So flow path, injection valve, direct inject, insert. Okay. And then after we do that, we need to turn the sample inlet. We need to make sure that's to this the inlet we want it, because, you know, the first time we can't just have one, we just can't depend on it being the default flow path, right? And the default flow path for the sample inlet anyways is buffer. So I'm going to change this to position 1, insert. Oh, whoops, I gotta put this down here. Somehow I got it ahead of it. So sample flow, direct inject, sample inlet. Okay. Where was I? I'm gonna check my notes. All right, then I'm going to add an injection mark. And this will, the injection mark, I think is under flow path, right? Yep. And then I'm going to turn on the sample flow. This the same flow rate, which is 3.6 mils. Oops, I have to type that in. 3.6. All right, and then this is sample flow rate. Okay, just to make sure. Check my time. Put that in, insert. Then I want to make sure my outlet valve should be to waste. So it doesn't hurt to, as you go through this, just to make sure you're clicking on it right. So if you're in a position where, you know, your tanks that you're using for your waste are a problem, like, you know, you only have 5-liter tanks or something like that, you might want to have another. I've done this before, so we'll do it right now. Injection valve. We're gonna put an injection valve, insert right here, and then we're gonna do cell harvest waste, right? Okay, so the way we have this right now, and we could now separate our cell harvest waste. So now we're going to kind of get into the magic of this a little bit. We're going to put in a hold instruction, right? So basically what we've done with this method is we've set this up so the flow rate isn't running anymore. We're going to do direct inject. We're going to have the sample inlet running, right? We're going to choose our sample inlet, and then we're going to turn on the sample valve and potentially collect our waste product. So we're loading, but how do we stop loading? So we're going to go to watch, then hold until, and we're going to select the air sensor for the sample pump. Air sensor sample inlet valve. There we go. And then we're going to do till it equals, until air sensor, right? Until it equals, the air is there, right? And here's where the timeout comes in. So the timeout currently is in CVs, which is a little weird. Cancel. So let's go up here to SameAsMain. We can change the, it doesn't really matter right now. I don't see any reasons this phase can't be any base we want it to be right here. So this would be really helpful for this timeout instruction, for it to be mils, not CVs. So let's change the base to volume, change. And now when we go to this hold until, it's gonna be 5 mils. We're gonna change this to 500. 0. And this will be load volume. Let's do cell harvest load volume. All right. Okay. Change. There we go. All right, so it will trip after 500 mils. All right, so now what I like to do is I like to have a separate block in order to be able to reset my system, because we changed all these instructions right here. Well, now we have to change them back. So let's go to a reset. Let's put in a block, and we'll just call this block reset system. Okay, and insert. We're going to insert it all the way at the bottom. Okay, so for this, the way this works, the best way this works is to go through each of these instructions right here and do them backwards. So the first one, we don't need to change the hold until, right? Because that's sort of the key moment where the loading is actually taking place. So the first one from the bottom up is outlet valve. So here we're going to change the outlet valve, right? We're going to just put it back on waste, insert. You said sample flow is next, so we're going to turn off the sample flow. So sample flow is going to be 0, insert. We don't need variables for these because these just, reset everything. Don't need to change the injection mark because that's just a thing that happens, right? Sample inlet. If we wanted to, we could change this back to buffer, but we'll just leave it as S1. I think if we changed it back to buffer, that would be kind of confusing. The injection valve, we want to stop it from being direct inject. We're going to go back to the default, which is manual load. And if you don't believe me here, I'm just going to hit insert really. Whoops. Delete. Put them one right under the other. So delete. Okay, so we're going to put injection valve. We want it right here. So flow path, injection valve, manual load, insert. Okay, so next, after that, we need system flow. So what we're going to do is so for the flow rate, for the system flow rate, right, we're turning it back on. We're going to start washing our column next. What we're going to do is we only want to express the method flow rate once. We don't want to have like 2 or 3 of them in there. We're going to go here and we're going to copy this, right? So we're going to have a synchronized block. That's what we're doing right here. And we're going to hit paste. So this is asking us, do we want this block to be independent or do we want it to be synchronized, right? If we select yes, we want it independent, then we have to change the name of the block. If we select no, it's just going to put it right in there. It's going to be the same name. So we're going to hit no because we want it synchronized. So there it is, the synchronized block. And you'll see that it still says system flow rate, that's the system flow rate. And it will only ask us this particular variable right here, it'll only ask us that once. Okay, so we have the method flow rate. Okay, that's it. Oh, all right, so there's one thing I do want to do. So for the reset, right, I do want to have this, I want to be absolutely certain it happens after this hold. I don't want these, because remember, when it comes to timing, sometimes these instructions are read and completed at like slightly different times. So for timing, I'm going to set this as 0.02 mils after hold until. So that way I just know there's tiny little bit of a wait before we read this reset. So change, right? That's hardly anything at all. Okay, but I also do want to put in some other delays. If I wanted to, I could do this as a delay. I could put a delay block in here, but I like this personally as a way to delay just holds, right? Or instructions that come after holds. Okay, so I prefer, like, you can increase the chances or fidelity that this method will continue to perform really well if we add some delay blocks. So that's what we're going to do. So, other block, and I'll explain each of these delays as I put them in. Okay, so I'm going to put a delay block right here after system flow rate. Insert. Okay, oops, I would like capital B, please. Capital B, change. And this is going to be SameAsMain. This is going to be time. And I want to do, for time, I'm just going to do this as like 3 seconds. I only do 0.5 or 0.1 for my 0.05. 0.05 is 3 seconds. 0.5. Change. Insert. Change. Okay. Then, oops, I did the time and the base, so I kind of screwed that up. So I want this to be time right here, and then I want this to be 0.05. Change. Okay. Then, after that, I want this to be, and the reason I'm doing this right here is because this sample flow needs to be 0. So if the flow rate's at 3.6, the flow rate needs to go all the way down to 0 before we hit direct inject and sample inlet. Then I have, just like I have a delay for this between the changing of the injection valve and this flow rate inside the reset system, I also have another delay. So I'm going to add another block right here after this instruction, after the changing the flow rate, right? Because here the flow rate is still on. I want to take that down to 0. So I want to put it right here after this one. Okay. Other block delay C. Insert. So for this delay now, I want this to be time. Change, and then I want the end block for it to be 0.05 minutes. Change. Okay, so if this delay, if either of these two delays here, delay B or delay C, were anything other than time, because right here, in theory, there should be no flow going over the column for the 3 seconds that each of these delays are set. And that's fine because, you know, time will continue to tick by. But if you had volume or CV here, that like it would just stop at this delay C. Okay, so I am going to take this outlet valve instruction out. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to put it in, I made a mistake. Put them in this column wash here. All right. Then here, I'm going to do 1 CV. Change. Right? And then this thing will be for column wash, the length of the wash. I'll explain why the outlet valve is here in just a second. All right, so we're going to do a total of 4 CVs for the column wash. Change. Okay. So this is we're gonna wash for a total of 4 CVs, right? We have to be able to read the breakpoints here properly, because this is the first CV and then this is the 4th CV. So now the reason the outlet valve is set to waste right here is because if we reset the system, right? If we reset the outlet valve right here and we're trying to collect all of the cell harvest, we're trying to separate it, maybe you want to be able to test it to see if, this is a MabSelect method. So maybe you want to test the cell harvest to see if there are any antibodies in there, like that as it's gone through the column, right? We would want to make sure we collect all of it. And if we stop collecting it all right here where it says reset the system, what'll happen is the column right now just finished loading. So that means that it air tripped, but the column itself is still full of cell harvest. So about 1 CV later is when the wash solution, and the wash solution is just whatever's in inlet A, right? That wash solution is going to finally start coming out of the column. So that's why we're changing. We're going to put this instruction right here 1 CV later. This is the real point at which the cell harvest starts coming out of the column. The cell harvest stops coming out of the column and switches over to buffer. And then here, after 4 CVs, we're washing. Okay, let's see how long we've gone. 34 minutes. Okay, I hope somebody's still watching. Okay, so next we're going to be doing elution. And elution's pretty simple. It's just going to be changing the gradient to 100% B. Insert. Okay, so the next thing I have is a delay block followed by an auto 0. So I'm just going to put those in really fast. Block. I think we're on delay D. You can see here. Yep. Delay D. No, I've got delay B there still. That's down here and unused. Insert. I'm just going to delete delay B here really fast. I just like things nice and neat and clean. Okay, so delay D, and then auto 0 is next. Auto 0 is in monitors. There we go. Insert. Okay. So delay D, I am going to change this to, it's going to keep it as SameAsMain. I guess I'll do it as, because I want to keep it in CVs, right? I want to make sure, I'm just going to do 0.1 CVs. 0, change. So here, I just want to make sure that any changing of the system for this gradient right here and anything that's going on, I just want to make sure when I hit this auto 0 that the system is nice kinetic equilibrium. I'm just overly paranoid about it. That's why I have this here. I don't want the fact that the pump A stops flowing right here and pump B stops flowing. I don't want there to be pump B starts flowing. I don't want there to be any like back and forth turbidity inside the UV meter. That's why that's what I'm talking about. All right. Auto 0. So now that we've done that, I want another delay block. Block delay E. Insert This one's gonna be really quick. We're gonna do time. No, column is the same. Time, change, and we're gonna do 0.05 minutes. Change. All right, we don't have a lot of time because as soon as we start pumping the gradient at 100%, we only have 1 CV to get through there, right? So we have half a CV right here and then 0.05. So we've gone 1.5 CVs before we can start to expect the protein to start coming through. But the reason we want to delay here is because the next instruction we're going to put in is the flow path, and not flow path, is the fractionation instruction. So peak fractionation parameters. I think we have to have parameters first. Peak fractionation parameters. There we go. Start level we said was going to be 100. It's going to be start peak frac. Okay. And then end level, it's going to be 75. Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay. And peak frac. Okay, and we want to change this to 75. And then we have this expressed as mode as level, right? We don't have expressed as slope. So level, whoops. Okay. Change, no, insert, bam. Okay, that's after the delay. And then we're going to do peak fractionation. So this usually ends up being about 1 CV fractions, so it ends up being like between 7 to 10 mils, depends on how much volume we pick up. So I'm just going to do 15 mil tubes, but I'm going to do 12 mils. That's because I put some solution, some titration solution in there. We're getting there, we're almost done. Okay, so the length of elution is the next one right here. So for the length of elution, we're going to do 3 CVs. Change. Great. So now we're going to clean the column, right? And so what I like to do is so that I can use, I made a video about this too, and I'll link it down there. But we're going to do a block as a variable to do this. So the block is going to, the column is the, so the variable for this is going to be called, wait, all right, so cancel. Okay, I need to make the 2 blocks. So skip, all right, is going to be the first one. Insert, and then I'm going to delete this, and so that's going to put it into unused. So there's skip right there, and then I'm going to put in another block. You can see why I had to stop and think about this for a second, and this is going to be column cleaning. All right, insert, and then the variable is going to be called skip or sip. Okay, actually, you know what? I am going to change. I'm going to rename this block. I'm just going to delete it. No, I'm going to make a new block. I'm just going to call it SIP, CIP. Change. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so I now have a block called SIP. I have a block called skip and a block called column cleaning. So I'm going to delete this column cleaning block. And the reason is because my variable is called, scroll it back all the way back down here. My variable is called sip or skip. So I want the 2 variables. Okay, I want the two variables to be called SIP or skip, right? Not one of them column cleaning, even though column cleaning, clean in place, that's what CIP stands for, right? I just want to make sure everything's nice and neat and clean, at least as clean as possible. All right, so the SIP is going to happen immediately after the column cleaning. So I'm going to slow down the flow rate. This is how I do it usually. The flow path, pumps, system flow. Usually I do this with slower flow rate. I'm going to do 2.5 mils a minute. Insert. This is inside there. And the reason I do the slower flow rate is because I use guanidine hydrochloride that's 6 molar in order to do the cleaning. And when I do that, guanidine hydrochloride is pretty viscous stuff, so it kind of creates a higher back pressure. So then inlet B, guanidine hydrochloride is going to be on A2, so this is going to be the SIP. So solution. Okay. Insert. And then the base for this is not going to be column volumes, but it's going to be time. So change that so that this end block is the end block I want to do that with. Yeah. Okay. So the end block can be 30 minutes. So I do 30-minute exposure to my SIP reagent, right? Okay. So that's the column cleaning. You know what? When I set this up, I forgot one phase, and that's column re-equilibration. So, okay. Column re-equilibration. Okay, so for column re-equilibration, it's happening after column cleaning, right? So whether I'm cleaning a column or not, I still want to make sure that the column is like, either out of the acidic solution that occurs during in elution, or out of the guanidine hydrochloride that's in the SIP phase. So here I'm just going to change I'm going to put the flow rate back to, I'm going to turn the flow rate back on to the higher flow rate, copy, paste. I want it to be synchronized again, so I'm going to hit no. Alright, and then after that, I'm going to change the flow path back to A1, insert. Then, let's see here, so let's change these around, because I want the A1 to be before the method flow rate. There we go. All right, and the end block, okay, so I re-equilibrate for 5 CVs, that sounds right. 0, 0, and I'm going to make this a variable because I can. ng length of re-equilibrate. All right, hopefully I spelled that right. No time to check. Change. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this method flow rate breakpoint to 1 CV, right? And when I do this, it's going to add another CV to here, so I'm going to have to change this one back, but that's fine. Change. Okay, so I'm going to change this to 5 again, because I don't want to do 6 CVs of washing, I want to do 5. Change. Okay, so the reason I put the method flow rate, what happens here is that we finish the column cleaning, right? And we do that for 1 CV. We don't know what the flow rate is. We're going to be doing that, and we're going to be doing this in the running buffer, right? But for 1 CV, we're going to do it either at 3.6 mils per minute, because we did the skip block, because the skip block has nothing in it. It's just it's blank, right? But if we do the column re-equilibration phase, right, we change if we do the SIP block, we change the flow rate down to 2.5, but we still have all the quantity of hydrochloride in there, so we need to wait 1 CV right here before we bump it back up to 3.6. So that's the method right there. If I screwed anything up, I will add a little section to the end of the video, right? But let me show you how the scouting would work. First of all, let's look at the view duration and variables really fast. So it looks like in terms of minutes, this will take 62 minutes to complete. But that doesn't include, I don't think that includes the loading. Usually the loading takes a much longer time. Yep, because it says hold. That's funny, because this reset system should be, I want to double check to make sure I change that. That's right, this should be like a little bit later after this hold. But there's no difference in time here, and this should take the longest part right here. So let's check that really fast. Make sure we have for load cell harvest. Yeah, maybe it's just not registered there because it's such a short amount of time. So this is the way we want it. So that's right. Okay, so now view duration and variables. I'm going to look at the variables really fast. So this is the variable list. It's not too long, right? Okay. So flow rate, sample loading, flow rate, load. That's kind of, I want all of it on there. I don't think this thing will expand. No. Harvest load volume is 500 mils. Okay, great. So close. So that's what the variable list will look like. The start protocol, I want to turn on the variable list, the fraction collector, and scouting. Those are my 3 favorite things to check. Okay. And now, so I'm going to be able to review the variable list, but I want to be able to check the scouting. So I am going to do probably the most important variable to put on here is the sample inlet. So where is it? How come I don't see it? Huh. Sample flow rate. Did we not put a variable in for the sample inlet? Oh, no, here's the sample inlet right here. We did not. So sample, we'll do cell harvest inlet. No, sample inlet position. Okay, there we go. Change. All right, there's the variable. Right, that's the most important one, because the idea here is we're running the same column, we're collecting a bunch of fractions, but we want to be able to do like 4 or 5 samples that are all 500 mils, right? So sample inlet position. Okay. So if we set this up to do, let's say 3 runs, right? We could do sample inlet 1, 2, and sample inlet 3, right? There we go. Select. And then I also like to add the column position. This just makes me feel better. I know it's like, I can kind of see by adding some of these extra variables into the scouting, I can just sort of see the method, how the scouting is all mapped out. And then we need SIP or skip, right? Wash buffer. We want wash sample in there as well. Okay. So we're going to be washing the sample line with buffer for all 3 runs, right? Our column position is going to be position 1 every time. Then every 3 runs, we're going to be running this. And then we're going to be skipping the column cleaning the first 2 runs. And the last run, we're going to clean in place, right? We could add even more runs if we wanted to. Oh wait, I want to select one more because, like, again, I like to have the entire, scouting mapped out in front of me. The length of cell harvest load volume. Okay, each one of those are going to be running 500 mils, right? So I hope you too can see it mapped out now. The only one we're really changing every time is the sample inlet position. That's why that's the most important one, and then the column cleaning. And all I wanted to point out here was we could add a bunch more runs if we wanted to. And so I know for this column I need to clean it every 5th run. So I could do, if I was doing a run this long, it would look like this. Right there. So I always want to clean the last run and also every 5th run, right? But we'll just remove these runs. Okay. There you go. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, just put a comment below. I will also add any corrections to the end of this video. And I'll probably do a video about setting the system up in order to be able to run them. Gotta save it, right? So save as training. We're gonna do this as Don't forget to save, folks. Save. There we go. Thank you very much. So in the last video, I said that if I had any mistakes I made, I would show them to you. So I made a clearing omission. If you go to the view and turn on gradient, you notice that the red line, which is the 100% beat line, never goes down. That means I forgot to put the 0% beat instruction after the elution phase. So after the elution phase means I should insert it into the column cleaning phase. So I'm going to do this between the base instruction and the variable instruction for the column cleaning. So right here, just go to gradient and it's set to 0 now. So insert, and then also similarly, peak fractionation is never turned off. So, we may stop collecting fractions here, but just in case the UV ends up being, randomly high, it would be helpful to actually turn it off. So fraction collection, stop peak fractionation, and insert. There you go. That should fix any of the problems. Thank you very much.